Okay, so it seems that quite a few of us are a little confused, to say the least, understandably so, but let's see if we can't do something to fix that. Okay, so as I'm sure you've already guessed, today's video is going to be on this whole GameStop debacle thing. Now, there's a pretty good chance you have absolutely no idea what's going on here. You hear words like Wall Street and investments and GameStop being thrown all over the place, and you have no idea how to make heads or tails of it. At the very most, you might understand that somehow a rich person somewhere isn't going to come out as rich as they would have otherwise. And that's probably the extent of your knowledge, if that. Now, if you're in this kind of situation, that's okay. It's pretty understandable to be that confused. Unless you're really in the investment scene or the Reddit scene, which is oddly enough not something I immediately thought to correlate with investments, but here we are, then it's pretty understandable that you don't know what's happening. That's why I'm making this video. Now, I will say that I'm going to minimize the technical terms as much as possible. If I can, I'm going to eliminate them mostly, if not completely. Not because they're not important. They're very, very, very important, and maybe I'll make a separate video. But I think the fact that we're throwing so many technical terms here, as correct and proper it is to use them, it's really confusing a lot of people. So I'm going to try to minimize that. And then after I'm done explaining it, I'm going to give you a couple warnings when it comes to this kind of thing, as well as my own thoughts of how certain people should proceed forward. Now, I'm going to start by going over a couple things that you probably already know, but it's just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Wall Street is a very specific place in New York where a lot of investment firms have their offices, and that's where a lot of them do a good portion of their trading. GameStop is a franchise of video game stores that, well, sells video games in physical locations. Recently, GameStop has not been doing very well, mostly due to the rise in digital games. Okay? Now, before we continue, I'm going to give you a fair warning. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain a very specific process. And this is how it would normally happen prior to this whole incident. This is what it would usually look like. And it's not complicated. But trying to understand this process is almost like trying to understand somebody when they come up to you and they say something like, "This is not the answer." Again, it's not necessarily complicated, but there's so much back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, it's really easy to lose track of what's happening. Now, I'm going to go as slow as possible, so I think I should be able to help everybody understand, and there's going to be a little bit, actually a lot of repetition, so it might get a little annoying, but it should make it a lot clearer. I just want to prepare your mind for those challenges, okay? Now, we're going to start by finding our investment type person. We're going to make a person, her name is Multi, because nobody likes Multi, and if you watch Shield Hero, you know exactly why. If you haven't seen Shield Hero, don't worry about it, but now you have a suggestion as to what you should watch when you're bored. Anyways, this person, her name is Multi, and Multi sees that there is a stock, right? This is a stock. Now, obviously, that's not what a stock actually looks like, but let's just pretend this symbol represents the stock. Multi sees that this stock right now is worth $60. Okay? This stock is worth $60. And Multi thinks that this stock is going to go down in price really soon. So what Multi has figured out is that there's this really weird way to take advantage of the fact that she's pretty sure that this stock is about to drop. So, here's what Multi does. Multi finds her friend. Her friend, let's call him Steve, right? I don't know why. I don't really have a reason for that. His name's just Steve, okay? All right. So Multi's like, "Hey, Steve, I see that you own this stock." Steve currently has purchased this stock and he owns it, okay? So Multi's like, "Hey, can I borrow this stock?" All right? Steve's like, sure, I will lend you this stock. I know that this is kind of the first point. This is kind of the first point where people start to get confused. I know it's weird because a stock is not a physical object, so it's weird to think that somebody can loan a stock. But try to think of it like it has the properties of one. So just imagine, or like try to just set your mind on the concept that even though it's not a physical object, you can still loan it out. You can still borrow this not physical object, okay? Now, what Malty does, right, is she sells it, right? She has it. She no longer has it because she sold it for $60. So now, Malty no longer has this stock, but she does have $60. Now, if you even know the basics of how investments work, this seems weird to you because normally the way you probably understand investments to work is that you buy a stock when it's really, really low, and then you sell it when it's more expensive, and then the difference is your profit. So buying a stock just to sell it for its current value seems weird, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It didn't make a lot of sense to me either at first, but just follow me here. It's kind of tricky how they do this. Okay, so now that Malty has $60, she still needs to give Steve the stock. Still, because remember, Malty did not own this stock. She borrowed it. It was borrowed, so she needs to give her the stock back. So what she does, really clever, she waits until it goes down in price, right? So now, instead of the stock being worth $60, it is now, let's say 20, right? It is now worth $20. So now, Malty goes and then buys this stock back. So now, Malty currently has $40 and she has the stock. Okay? Now, what she does is she goes back to Steve and she returns the stock to Steve along with $10. Okay? So now, the reason she did that is because I probably should have mentioned this when we started, but the agreement that these people will make is that they return the stock to them plus an extra fee so that there's actual incentive to, loan the stock out. So, just to recap, Malty borrows the stock from Steve. She sells it at its current price, which is $60. She waits for it to go down, and then she buys it again when it's lower at $20. Then, she now has $40 along with the stock. She goes back, returns the stock along with $10. So, let me clear this board here. If you were able to keep up with all of that, all right, and I think I made it. Hopefully, I made it clear. What now has happened is that Malty has made $30, and Steve has made $10, plus he got his stock back. So this is how the process usually happens. Okay? This is what a process known as shorts. Don't ask me why it's called that. I suspect it's because of the time it takes to actually do this, but this is what they normally do. All right, this is their normal process. Now, this is how it relates into this whole situation with GameStop. Okay? And feel free to pause here if you're still a little lost to rewind and watch it over. I had to watch it over like 2 or 3 times before I was kind of able to wrap my head around it. Because again, it's not complicated. It's just back and forth to the point where, yeah, you might have to watch it a couple times. Now, hopefully you understand how this normally works. This is what happened in this weird GameStop situation. We'll use Malty again, okay? Malty sees that GameStop, all right, Games, that is somehow a G and an S. Okay, let's pretend that's actually legible. Okay, GameStop. Let's say I don't know exactly how much Multi bought it for. I really don't. But for argument's sake, let's go ahead and say at the time that or not Multi bought it, but let's just say at the time when this started, right? It was, let's say, $70. Okay. So Multi sees that GameStop stock was at $70. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, GameStop has not been doing too well due to the rise in digital sales, right? Everybody's buying games digitally. And the reason that's important is because GameStop is currently not in a great position because their stocks just keep going down and down and down. So Multi sees, okay, GameStop stock is at $70. And she thinks, she's pretty sure that it's going to go down pretty soon. Reasonably so. So, Multi decides to use this tactic with this GameStop stock. So she goes over to Steve, who already has this stock. So she's like, okay, Steve, let me borrow this stock. All right. So Steve goes ahead and gives Multi the stock. Okay. Like normal, Multi takes the stock. She sells it. She gives it to the stock market. She no longer has the stock, but she now has $70 because she sold it for its current value. She's suspecting that's going to go down pretty soon. So, up to this point, everything has gone smoothly. This is how it normally happens. Now, if this had continued going normally, again, Multi would have waited for it to go down. She would have bought it at a cheaper price. She would have given the stock back to Steve along with a little bit of extra money, and the difference in how much she spent would be her profit. This is the point. This is where everybody in Wall Street who was doing this was when Reddit decided to step in. So basically, I don't know if you guys know how Reddit works. It is a website where, actually, you know what? Let me just make some more room for myself here. And I know most of you probably already know what Reddit is. This is probably a little redundant for a lot of you, but I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Now imagine that this is Reddit, okay? And Reddit is made out of several smaller pieces. Thousands, maybe millions, or even possibly billions. I'm not sure. I don't think anybody actually knows. Or maybe somebody does, but that's besides the point, okay? Big Reddit is made out of these thousands, hundreds, millions, whatever it is, smaller pieces. And each of these pieces are known as subreddits. Now, each subreddit has a topic or theme, if you will. For instance, let's say that this one is about knitting. You can go there, you can share knitting memes, you can talk about new knitting techniques, you can talk about new knitting material, whatever you want, you can discuss it with several of the people who enjoy knitting. Or, let's say you were into cooking. No worries, this one here covers cooking. Now you can talk about new recipes, you can talk about your new favorite methods of cooking, you can talk about the latest non-stick pots and pans, whatever it may be. Everybody who likes to cook is in that area. Or perhaps you would like to talk about video games, or croquet, or badminton. Whatever you'd like to talk about, if there's a group of people who are interested in it, there's probably a subreddit for it as well. Okay? This is a very weird way to think about Reddit, but for people who are not familiar with it, it's probably the easiest way to digest the entire idea. It's pretty interesting, and it's a really, really good way to find like-minded individuals that you would like to share your passion with. Alright? So, now that we understand what Reddit is, although that's probably redundant for most, if not all of you, I apologize if you had to sit through that and didn't need it, but just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So basically, there was one subreddit that was devoted to investments. And they figured out that everybody, again, was at this point. They're halfway through the process of, the shorts, of purchasing something and then selling it and then buying it again to make the difference in profit. So they decided, hang on, the reason this works is because at this point, the price goes down. If everybody in this Reddit decides that they're going to buy GameStop stock, then we can make it go up. Because the more stock is bought, I don't know if you guys know this, any individual stock, if everybody decides to buy it, it's going to go up in price. Because the more people want it, or the more demand there is for it, the more anything goes up in price. It's literally like any other object. So with stocks, the more people buy it, the more it goes up in price. I can go over supply and demand, but I don't think we really need to right now. Maybe I'll go over it in another video. I might have already, but besides the point. All you need to know, more people buy, stock goes up. So because Multi here is relying on the stock going down, if everybody buys it and makes it go up, now the only way Multi still needs to give Steve back his stock. Remember, Multi has borrowed this stock. It is not hers. She needs to give it back. She needs to get it back somehow. So the only way to get it back is to buy it again. Now, let's say, just for argument's sake, it has actually gone up to $80, okay? So, now, Multi purchases it for $80. Now, already, because she needs the stock, she lost essentially $10 because she had to purchase it for $80. So now she has the stock. Or, hang on, that's not right. That's just another 8. Hang on. So now she has the stock. She has to go back to Steve and give him his stock along with the $10 she promised Steve. So now, on top of the $10 she lost after the stock went up to $80, she now lost $10 more to Steve. So, instead of making, say, 60, 40, whatever, she actually ends up losing $20. Now, in a lot of these cases, these stock people end up losing a whole lot more, like a ton more. We're just using small numbers so that we don't get too confused. So, yeah, that's essentially what's been happening. Hopefully now you have a much firmer understanding of what's going on here. Now, the only thing that I kind of see, I don't even want to say it's a flaw or anything like that, because it actually makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. And even though I did do my research, which of course you can find below, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to pretend to be an expert here. But the thing that I kind of see might happen is that, okay, now they've lost the money from that initial transaction because they had to buy back the stock to give Steven or whoever their actual person is back the money. But now the stock is like super high, and we know it's going to fall, or we're pretty sure it's going to fall eventually. So you could theoretically just do the same thing, but with this much higher price. And the reason that a lot of us, to include myself, is fairly certain it's going to fall is because people are not buying these stocks because they necessarily think that GameStop is going to become somehow all of a sudden super profitable or just amazing at salesmen and they just become like super big again, right? That's not why most, if anybody, is buying it. They're buying it solely, if not mostly, for this whole plan to work. Which means that once this whole thing starts to die down, the stocks are inevitably going to fall again. So theoretically, you could buy borrow the large stocks now from whoever else, in this case Steven, and then, do this whole process again and do it that way. Now, keep in mind that normally, again, we would be working with much larger numbers. So when you take into account the larger numbers, then even through this process, they'll still technically lose money. because the amount of money they lost from the beginning still is more than what people think that they're going to lose after the stock starts to go down. I just didn't use any bigger numbers, even just for my own sanity. I mean, we go above 3 digits, I'm going to explode, okay? So we kept it simple, but that's the only thing. Now, this is where the warning part comes in, okay? If you bought GameStop stock, man, I gotta practice that. But if you bought GameStop stock, you probably want to keep an eye out for when it starts to dip down. There's a pretty good chance. I'm not gonna lie, well, I don't know a pretty good chance. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm an expert or anything. I've done my research, but I'm not an expert. It's not uncommon for the stock just to dive, okay? Sometimes it steadily goes down, but other times it just dives. So you could have, say, 300, 380, whatever the stock is this morning, and you could wake up tomorrow and it's $5. It can go that quickly. It has gone that quickly with multiple other stuff. Not for this reason, but it happens constantly. The stock market is something that tends to be one of the hardest things to predict. Like, you thought predicting the weather was hard. Oish. But regardless, my point being is that there could come a point where it could just, if you're lucky, it starts to just slowly go down, and then you'll be able to tell, and then you'll be able to sell your stocks immediately. But there is a pretty good chance it's just going to dive. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you have stock in GameStop and you've made profit, I would recommend that at the very least, you take out the money that you initially invested. So let's say, hang on. Gotta clear this. Almost there. Getting there. Okay. Let's say, for argument's sake, you spent, I don't know, $50 on GameStop. And it went up to, just for argument's sake, $300, to keep it simple. I highly suggest you take out $50, so now you only have $250 in GameStop stock. The reason being, that way, if the whole thing just dies tomorrow, then you don't lose anything. You have not lost any money throughout this whole process, okay? I mean, honestly, if you were in this just to make the profit, I might advise you just to take it out now, because who knows when it's going to dive again? But at the very least, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you take out at least the amount of money that you originally spent in it, and then just continue to keep going or keep risking the money that was already achieved through the investment. That way, if it dies, again, you don't lose anything. Now, with all that being said, there is one way that I can personally think of that will allow the stock to stay up as opposed to just die immediately after everybody stops doing this whole thing. And by the way, that's why you see a lot of the memes where it's like, hold the stock or whatever, because they want people to continue to hold on to the stock so the stock stays up high. That way it doesn't go down. I don't know how long you can keep that up, because honestly, I don't think this has ever happened before. But I guess we're gonna find out. Now, again, there is one way I can think of that will allow GameStop to keep their stock up at least higher than they were before, without having to rely on a bunch of people trying to hold on to these stocks. And it's very simple. What we all need to do, or whoever's around the GameStop needs to do, is go to GameStop and buy stuff. Right? Because think about it. The whole reason that GameStop stock went down is because they were selling less stuff. It's because there was less transactions being made. It's because the business was not doing as well as it once used to. So, theoretically, all you'd have to do to keep the stock up is give GameStop more business, as opposed to trying to hold on to the stock. And I'm hoping, because frankly, I do enjoy brick and mortar type stores. I feel kind of sad that they're going away, because they are an experience. I do like to walk into these brick and mortar stores, whatever it may be, whether it's for music, games, whatever. I do enjoy walking because it's an experience to go and find things, and frankly, it's a lot easier to browse that way for me. But I'm going at the point. Point is, I do like these kinds of stores, so I'm hoping that this franchise GameStop, where they take advantage of the fact that the stocks are going up, and hopefully people give them more business so that they don't have to rely on just the stocks or just rely on people holding on to the stocks to go up. Give them business, and hopefully GameStop takes advantage of the extra revenue and finds a way to use it to find a more sustainable way to stay open. That way, we don't have to try to hold on to the stock. That way, people don't have to like sit there and just not sell and trust that everybody doesn't, or most people don't sell the stock. So the stock would just be up naturally. There'd be no need to artificially bring it up. It's already up. So yeah, that's my thoughts. That's how everything works. Hopefully I explained everything to you. Hopefully I gave you a fair warning. Granted, $50 is not that much. So I guess even if you invested $50, it's not that big of a deal if you lose it all. Because I mean, you lose $50. But if you put in like a good chunk of change, like a couple hundred, I suggest you take out at least that couple hundred. You can keep the money you made in there for sure, but if you put a good chunk of change into it, I suggest you take it out before, again, because we don't know. It could immediately drop, it could not. I have no idea. But with that, finishes the whole video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was kind of long, but it was a lot of information, and I'm really, really hoping I simplified it all for you. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other week. So until next time, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.